Hey guys, Andrew McFarland here from StartAJuiceBar.com. Hope you guys are happy and healthy, excited to grow your businesses or launch your businesses. Today, we are talking about the problem with wholesaling your juice. It's going to be an in-depth, deep dive, so you're going to want to stay tuned. But before we dive in, if you guys are new to the channel and you don't know who I am or what we do, over the last 12 years, myself and our company has had the pleasure of running our own juice concepts as well as supporting hundreds of people just like yourself launch and scale juice concepts, smoothie concepts, acai bowl businesses, juice trucks, and the like. You name it, we've done it. So all the information on this channel is coming from that experience. Early invitation, press the like button. It's good for you. It's good for us. It's good for everyone. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. So if you're in a place where you are either already wholesaling and thinking about growing your wholesale segment of your business, or you're thinking about getting into wholesaling, meaning, if you don't know what I mean by wholesaling, it means to create your product, create your juice, your smoothie, whatever your products are, right? And then in large volume, at a discount that would be more significant than whatever the retail price is, sell your products to third parties. That could be other gyms, that could be yoga studios, it could be other grocery stores, it could be any kind of business that is going to resell your juice on behalf of your company, okay? So there are a few pitfalls and ultimately reasons that I would say you definitely need to be aware of before you dive in, and we're gonna dive into all of those right now. So the first thing that you have to be aware of, if you are going to do this legitimately, and you are in the United States now, if you're in other countries, you're gonna have different laws, policies, different regulatory frameworks that you need to be aware of when you walk into starting this part of your business. But in the United States, for now, the FDA doesn't legally allow you to sell your juice through a third-party vendor unless your product is high-pressure pasteurized or pasteurized. Now, if you know what that is, I'll kind of explain it to you quickly. Pasteurization is a process where they heat up the juice in order to kill a lot of bacteria. A lot of the juices that you see in grocery stores, really anywhere, right? That's not directly at the juice bar. All these juices are processed somehow. If you see juices in the fridge and you've wondered, hey, why does this juice have a 30-day shelf life, a 60-day shelf life, a 90-day shelf life? It's because it's been high pressure processed or it's been pasteurized to a certain degree, okay? Now, this process does degrade the quality of the juice, but this is what people have to do if they are selling it through third-party retailers. Okay, that's the first thing to be aware of. So in order to sell your juices through a third-party retailer, you have to HPP process or pasteurize. Now, the other issue with doing that, let's say you did want to go through that process, you're talking about really needing to have high volumes of juices to do that effectively, because you're not going to buy an HPP machine. Most likely these machines are hundreds of thousands, if not maybe close to $1 million, give or take. So the likelihood of that being accessible for you is pretty low. If it is, then explore it. But if not, then you need to be aware that you are going to need to put in hundreds of thousands of units in order to HPP it and then sell it through these other third parties. So at some stage in your business, you might get there, and it's good to be aware of that, but this is what it takes if you're going to wholesale effectively. Now, there are workarounds, and you could say not loopholes, but workarounds is probably the best way of putting it. If you are, let's just say, sell through a gym, a yoga studio, somewhere else, you can have, let's say, a vending machine or a kiosk inside of that location that you can still sell through, because you're not technically selling your product to them. You are using their location, which you could have a sublease for, a section to sell your own product. So there's still, you could say, ownership over the distribution chain of selling your product. So that is a workaround, but that's something to consider if you want to use different outlets to sell your product. You still want to go to gyms, you still want to go to yoga studios and everywhere else. You might in turn pay them a rent to have your vending machine in there, or have a kiosk of some sort where you're going to retail your products, but you're not technically selling the product to them and then them selling it to the consumer. So there's still complete accountability in the supply chain in case something happens. Now, what are the other potential issues with wholesaling that you need to be aware of? And this is I would say, the most significant one from my perspective. It is the fact that when you are in food service, and I said this a lot on this channel, but you really have to grasp it if you haven't. When you're in food service, you are already in the high volume, low margin business. High volume meaning selling a lot of units. If you sell cups, you don't have a large margin. You're not going to make $100 on a mug. If this mug sells for, let's say $120, my profit isn't $100. Okay. You have very, very, very thin margins in food service as it is anyway, because you're in the large volume game. If you start getting into wholesaling, let's say your product naturally retails for $10, right? Now, that is going to be the price that the retailer charges the consumer. For them to even be incentivized to carry your products, they have to make some profit on it. At minimum, most of the time, if they're willing, maybe 25%, but more often in the wholesale world, the margins are more like 35, 40, sometimes some products might be 50% on whatever price that you pay to the vendor, okay? If you were the retailer. And in this case, that would be you. You would be the wholesaler. So if you're in a situation where you're already having to cut your margin even more, when you already don't have a high profitability on your products, this is also why it's really, really important to do your menu costing. And I know a lot of you guys don't do it because I talk to a lot of you, but if you need help with that, reach out to me personally, Andrew@StartAJuiceBar.com. But this is why it's so, so critical for you to really know what your profit margins are on all of your products, whether you're wholesaling or not, because this is going to determine whether or not you charge $9 or $10. The difference between $9 and $10 is not insignificant. That's 10%, right? So you need to be aware of what your margins are. And when you go into wholesaling, now you've added more pressure and reduced your profitability on your products. And most likely when you're going to sell through these yoga studios, these gyms and whatever else, you're not moving tons of units. So you have a lot of retailers and they're all selling a few bottles here and there per day. Logistically, it gets really, really difficult when you're doing that at scale. And then let's say, which most people want, you do get an account with a really big retailer. Let's say, the holy grail for a lot of people is to get an account with Whole Foods. I did a whole podcast episode about this, okay? And I'll link it in the description below with another friend of mine and business partner who had a deal with Whole Foods. And he ultimately came to the conclusion this was one of the biggest mistakes that they made in their business was signing that agreement, because what happens is when you have a individual retailer, and big grocery stores have thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of SKUs, okay? They don't care about your company. And when 80% of your sales volume is going through that one business, what does that mean? That means that you're having to set up all kinds of infrastructure to service that one client. That means employees, that means equipment, that means actual physical manufacturing facilities, all of these things in order to service that account. You might take out a loan in order to service that account. What happens when they say, you know what? Yeah, we said we were going to carry 10 products. Let's cut that in half, 5 products. For them, it means nothing. For you, it means 50% of your product SKUs are gone. What if they say, you know what? We just don't even want to carry your product anymore. And they were accountable for 80% of your income. Maybe some situations 90, 95%. Guess what? Your business is gone. You don't have control, and they have all the leverage in that relationship because you need them and they don't need you. Good, balanced business partnerships are mutually beneficial and not so lopsided. And it's not to say that some people don't succeed when they go through that route. Of course, there are many companies that you're aware of, Naked, Blueprint, there's a lot of businesses, Suja Juice, they did very well. There's a lot of companies that create juice that end up in these companies. They do well, they scale, they grow, but now that's fewer and further between because there's more competition in that market, and the leverage is always going to be on the side of the retailer. And so unless, and this is what I say, if you're getting a wholesale, you have to be very, very, very well funded and understand what the implications of the situation that you're getting into. A lot of you out there are approaching wholesaling as if it's a small man's game, a small woman's game, a small business owner's game, when really that's a game for big players if you want to thrive and you want to do that well because of all the things that I just mentioned. You can do it. Just understand what you're getting into, make sure you're properly funded for it, you have the right infrastructure, you understand what the market is, how you're going to differentiate yourself, and overall, why you're doing what you're doing. You can do it. Companies do it. So I don't want to say that it's impossible. The whole point of this video is just to make you guys aware so you don't start approaching your business in a certain way and either get shut down by the FDA and then now all your sales are gone. You don't end up in a situation where you think that this is going to be not having the implications that it really has. And so you're walking in naive. Any situation in business, it's not to say do it or don't do it, but walk in with coherence and clarity so that whatever decision you make, you know what to expect. You know what the potential pitfalls are. You know how to overcome those issues. And you just have that awareness, because every situation that you walk into, there's going to be pros and cons. Some are going to be easier than others. Some are going to be more expensive. Some are going to be slower, faster, and so forth. So that's what my perspective is, and awareness of what wholesaling is. And oftentimes, why I've personally avoided it, it's just not been my preference. The last thing that I'll say when it comes to wholesaling that is another downside is you don't have direct connection to your customer. So a lot of times, if your products aren't selling, it could be due to a lot of things, and it's hard to figure out why. Because it could be that the retailer has decided to put your product on the bottom shelf and no one's seeing it. And that's just the reason why, because you don't have control over that. You haven't negotiated that. There's no leverage you have in that situation. Or it could be because people don't like your product. But guess what? You don't know, because you don't have a juice bar or store for people are walking in and telling you, I don't like this product. I don't like the name of it. I don't like the look of it. You can learn in those situations. But if you just go straight into wholesaling and these retailers don't care about your business and things aren't going well, well, guess what? You're going to end up in a situation where they might give you a try, things might not work out, and you're sort of vulnerable in a way that you didn't expect to be, because you didn't have that foundation of resilience in your business that you really needed. So that's the message for today. If you guys need support, we have a full spectrum juice business development firm. Reach me personally, Andrew at StartAJuiceBar.com. Follow us on Instagram at StartAJuiceBar. We have exclusive giveaways and content that we only share there. You can even direct message us. We can have a quick conversation. Lastly, we have a podcast on Spotify and on iTunes. It's called the Juice Bar Experts Podcast. Easy to find. Any questions or comments? Or if you just like the video, we'd love to hear from you guys. It supports the channel. So if you've gained any value out of this time of us being here, appreciate a comment and subscribe to the channel, notification bell. That way you get alerted when we release new content. That's all for today. Wishing you guys a lot of success. See you soon. Hope you guys have been enjoying the video content. If you're inspired to learn even more about how to start your juice business from scratch, for you, we have a free ebook. It's called the 15 Steps to Starting Your Juice Business. And this is going to go through a high-level overview, through a step-by-step process on how you get your business off the ground. Everything from, branding, menu development, finding the right location, and more. This is going to be a clear roadmap so you know how to go from where you are all the way to opening your store. If you want to go even deeper, we've also created an online course. It's called the Juice Bar Master Blueprint. This is going to go into great depth on everything from how do you put together and think about recipe development? How do you cost out your menu, and what's the math around it? What equipment do you need? How do you design your store? How do you find the right location? And so much more. I know you're going to find a lot of value out of both of these. There's links in the description below. So I hope to see you guys at the next video, and enjoy.